Hi, everybody. Welcome to our next episode of The Round Table with Brian Zimmerman. And I am Sarah Blessing. And today we're talking all about Special Forces Qualifications course, which I believe they call, what's the short word? Q? Q course?
Q.
I hear that a lot, Q course. And I'm like, what are these people talking about? And it's qualifications. So we're going to dig deep into what happened with the training. What's it take to become a Special Forces Green Beret? I don't think I could have done it, and I can't wait to hear all that you went through. So let's get into it, and I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Brian, how are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good, thanks. Yeah.
I did want to acknowledge that this morning we woke up to the sad news that the Pope has passed away. He was 88. I am not Catholic, but I've been around that religion, and people that I love are Catholic, and so it really hit me. I shed a few tears this morning, just feeling really blessed for that man.
Yeah.
He, in my opinion, is a very good man that really tried to care about those that most need it. And he worked on pushing the system to be better. The Catholic Church, he kind of wanted to change some things and make it so we love everybody, be less judgmental, help the poor. And I just really appreciate that. And I'm sad that he has passed away. And for those of you that are grieving, just like big hugs is kind of a big thing to wake up to. I thought it was sort of amazing that he did Easter services yesterday.
Yeah, that's pretty special. You got to do that.
When I'm around people that are older that know their time has come, sometimes you see them clinging and then letting themselves go. And I just wonder if that's what he did, if he held on for Easter.
Yeah.
I mean, I just thought that was kind of beautiful. So,
very possible.
Hey, just let us quick shout out. Can everybody hear us okay? Is the sound okay? And then we're going to get right started. Okay, so where did we leave off 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, we left off with being at Special Forces Assessment and Selection. That was January of 2004.
And then now you're going to a different type of training?
So now is when the training actually begins. At Special Forces Assessment and Selection, kind of to go over the wave top again, that's where you go to be assessed for your ability to be trained by the Special Forces. Do you have the aptitude, the mental, physical fortitude? Are you trainable? Are you a team player? I don't know. I don't think I mentioned it last week, but we take, I can't remember, 3 or 4 of the 500 questions, psychological evaluations. You take one up front, then in the middle, and then at the end, because as you're exhausted and tired, those who have maybe turned things around a little bit, worded things, this truth is eventually going to come out. So we do all of that. And I believe in my class, maybe 85, 90 candidates out of 350, 360 got selected. And so after that, you get your start date for the qualification course, the SFQC, Special Forces Qualification course. And that is where you go to actually learn how to be a basic ground level at the bottom Green Beret. And there are multiple different phases. So the first phase that I had to go into, because I had no training as a non-commissioned officer, I had to go to the basic non-commissioned officer course and the basics of being a non-commissioned officer, NCO. So we did that out at Camp McCall. That was 3 weeks, I think, 2 or 3 weeks. Most of it was just a smoke fest, to be honest with you.
What does that mean, a smoke fest?
So it is forced physical PT, looking for people to quit.
So let's make it so hard that a lot of you are going to quit, so we know you don't have what it takes.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not as much as like during basic training, but just the typical shenanigans type stuff. So, and not very many people quit. I mean, at that point, they've already been assessed, and I don't think anyone quit in that class. But there are a lot of academics learning the basics. So it was a good course. But then from there, I went to phase two, which phase two in the qualification course at the time, I'm not quite sure what it is now, but it was 8 weeks long, and essentially it was they essentially put us through Ranger School is what it was. So small unit tactics, weapons proficiency, um, moving as a unit through the woods, reconnaissance, airfield seizure, ambush, all of that stuff. That's what we did. So it was, and again, it was feeding from the fire hose. It really was, because a lot of us in the 18 X-ray program, we had not done any of that at the squad level or platoon level, any of that. And so it was rough. It was rough.
What were you thinking mentally while you were going through things that if you're saying it was rough, I'm taking that it was very extreme and very hard. How are you pulling yourself through it? We know you're going to make it out. We know you're going to become a Green Beret. How did you mentally handle it?
It was, well, one, you've just got your family of friends that are around you. And like I said a couple of weeks ago, ultimately, 2 or 3 of you guys that I came up with, we're going to end up on the same team or the same platoon or the same squad. And so when you're really in the suck, it may be your turn to be in the suck one day, and then a couple days later it's Jay's turn, and then all of us around each other are just there to really pick each other up and help get through that mental and physical, just, oh my gosh.
I feel like those of us that are not in the military world, which I am one of them, really had little idea how much community and those you're training with, being close to each other, got you through it. I didn't know that. I would watch, some war movies or watch some war TV shows or something and get a sense sometimes. But I think that's really beautiful. Like, if you didn't have them, if you didn't have other people going through the same thing and you guys could talk about it, maybe you wouldn't have been able to make it through it.
Well, that's kind of what selection was for, to find out how you work on your own. So I believe I still would have made it. It's more difficult when you're on your own.
Right.
So just there's, misery loves company. And in our case, when the misery sets in and there's plenty of company, you just kind of laugh. You kind of laugh at it together. Right. It's kind of fun. We chose this.
Right. It's like, why did we pick this? Ha ha ha. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
That's neat. So anyway, shout out to all of y'all that have been through intense military training. I just have a lot of appreciation for you all. You all doing this job to help keep us safe and protect our democracy and our freedom. And it just means a lot more to me since I met you. So I appreciate you telling all of us that. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Okay, so keep going. This is fascinating.
So 8 weeks out at Camp McCall, same place where we were at.
What state's Camp McCall?
North Carolina.
Okay.
And Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And we're out there for 8 weeks. And I believe the attrition rate, we may have lost 50% of our platoon. So you're broken up into platoons to do these small unit tactics. And it was, it's just like in Ranger School, you get evaluations at every phase. You have to pass.
So sometimes they're saying you didn't make the cut and they're kicking people out.
Or they're making, so you get a couple chances to do it. And it's stressful. I mean, it's, not a lot of food, not a lot of sleep, a whole lot of forced physical activity, day and night. I mean, and for me, my class, we went through it was May, June. So May, June at Camp McCall and
That's going to be hot.
It was miserable. I mean, it's like here in the Ohio Valley, during the summer, it's miserable.
And humid, hot and humid.
Hot and humid.
Buggy.
Miserable. So, I want to say the attrition rate was about 50%.
So either people are people still leaving on their own, or are they mostly getting cut at this time?
I can think of very few guys. I think maybe 1 or 2 out of the entire class that actually said, no, this is.
So most people are being told you're not good enough, you're out.
It's,
and then they put you in
yeah.
something else in the military, right?
So what they'll do, they'll roll you back. If you got it, what's called an NTR, a never to return, that means that you just go back to whatever unit you were at prior to going to selection. And if they thought that you were still, if you just needed more repetition, more practice, then they would write that in your evaluations and your final evaluation report, and give you a chance to come back. Maybe, I can't remember, maybe it's 6 months or a year later. If you were doing well but just not quite well enough, they might recycle you back into the next class.
Maybe you need training, a little bit more training,
right?
But you could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah. So.
And were sometimes you pretty sad? Like, was it a friend you'd gotten close to and then they're out? Like one day they're there, one day they're not. That didn't happen.
No, none of the guys. There's a really strange dynamic that happens. The people who choose not to be there or don't make the grade to be there, you quickly start to learn that you don't want them there. Go away, because one, that mentality, if they're just not mentally, grasping it or doing what they need or sucking it up, that's like a cancer, that can run roughshod through a class like that.
That's so fascinating. That makes sense. So you could sense they were struggling and you didn't want them to bring you down. You're trying to make this program. So you stay with the people that you see are mentally handling it. Those are the ones you're hanging out with. That makes sense.
Yeah, I shouldn't have to encourage you to be there. If you don't want to be there, then go away. I don't want you here. If you
this is only the best of the best are going to be Special Forces Green Beret.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Which is fine. Just go do that somewhere else.
I just saw a study yesterday where they did these like tests on people, and they bring a group of people that didn't know each other to work on a task. And if one person was negative, it would suck down everybody in the room and their productivity and everything just immediately.
Yeah.
So that comes to mind. You have to be the absolute best. You have to be on your best mentally, physically. You got to have your friends that are working with you, got to be on your best. So if you're seeing somebody not, you're like, don't be in this group. That makes so much sense. That's really, and I think we can sort of apply that to our own lives. If there's somebody that's negative, that's just constantly bringing you down, do you have to have that person in your close inner circle if they're hurting you?
Right. If you're that person that's constantly complaining, if you're a constant complainer, or, we ought to do this, we should do this. I'm a firm believer that you can make a problem worse just by being negative. Just, go somewhere else and do that. Just don't do that here.
One of the reasons I think me and you get along is I'm a fix-it person. I see the problem, let's fix it. And then when I can't fix it, I get annoyed.
Yeah.
So I don't want to complain about the problem. I want to know what's the problem. I want to know all the information. How do I fix it? And then we'll just keep going. Yeah. So I get that that's a Special Forces thing too, I can see. Okay, keep going. This is just fascinating.
So, and I do want to make a point too. It's almost impossible to determine who, during the selection process, SFAS, who is going to make it and who's not. You may, a perfect example, my bunkmate was a senior captain from Ranger Regiment, just the epitome of what you look at this guy, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, muscular, square jaw, intelligent, obviously, when he spoke. And I remember coming back from our last day, or next to last day of land navigation. It was a night land nav course, and it had been a long, long day and night. And I remember his name, Joe. I was like, "Hey, Joe, how's it going?" And he just kind of wasn't his bubbly self. It's all right, I was like, don't worry about it. We're almost to the end. We're doing good. Hang in there. And we had been told we could go to bed at that time, so I got, ate a little something, brushed my teeth, and I was in bed. And I woke up the next morning and he was gone. He voluntarily withdrew. He quit, and it was like, this is not for me. I don't want. So, and I just throw that out there, that the guys who look the muscly part, the big, strong, that doesn't mean anything. And I would say most of the guys in SF, when they put that muscle on, that bulk on, it's after the qualification course. Most of us during the qualification course, we look like, not the ultra marathoners, but more of like the what is it?
The
The
triathletes.
triathlete. That's generally what you have. So I just want to throw that out there. So you don't have to be this muscle
And like
bound.
also you don't have to make it to Green Beret. Like there were tons of people that didn't make it, and that's fine. It's like a certain type of person. And if you listen to your earlier episodes where you talked about your childhood, that's a big reason why you were able to do this. Your main memories growing up were really hard, and you figured out how to survive, and you just kept going, and that drive and that intelligence. So you had the makings of a Green Beret, like you could handle it. It's okay if other people didn't have that same thing and couldn't handle it. I could not have handled that. I would have dropped out, or I would have been said, "You got to get out of here." That sounds too hard, and I'm just so thankful there are humans out there like you that can handle it.
Well, I was surrounded by a lot of impressive people.
It's amazing.
When you're surrounded by impressive people, it lifts you up. So
that's another life tip. You pick your friends. You pick your friends, and you can pick some of your family. And
there was a saying I've heard that it's show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
That's
very, very that's very true. I believe.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so you're making it through. What other interesting stories do you have from this?
After we graduated phase 2, we actually got about maybe a 2 or 3 week break, and the home life, I should stress at this stage of the game, during the qualification course, that it was already starting to get very, very challenging. We were very early on in our marriage, had moved to North Carolina, moved away from her family, my family, which for me, that wasn't any big deal. But for her, it was a very big deal. She didn't have a support system there.
When you're having all these guys that you're training with, that you're making connections, but it's not necessarily making connections with people the way you are.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so my family was at work, and I was at work a lot, and it was starting to really challenge the marriage at that time. It wasn't a drinking every day kind of thing, but on the weekends, when we were home, we were a lot of get-togethers at homes and a lot of drinking, binge drinking type things, and I still wouldn't consider myself at that point an alcoholic. That I didn't think that I was. Maybe I was, but so there were some challenges, that were happening, but when we would move on to the next phase, we were so engrossed in that everything else just went away. Because if we didn't make it, we're potentially looking at going to Korea for the better part of the next 6 years, and so there was a lot of focus on the Special Forces qualification course.
You were probably, your brain power, your physical body, everything was being put towards being a Green Beret. You probably didn't have a lot of extra room for a marriage, an extra room for home life. I would imagine the majority of what you're thinking about is training and becoming a Green Beret. So it makes sense to me that on the weekends when you weren't doing the intense stuff, you might be drinking because you didn't want to think about that part of your life. You just wanted to get through this really hard thing that you were doing.
Honestly, looking back at it, it was, as a married guy and looking at it through the lens of a married man, my friends that were married also, you could tell that it was just this, things just really shifted a lot within the marriages during the qualification course. And then, of course, once you graduate from that and you move on to your group, and deployments, it goes tenfold, it's just
like, I would think your wisdom now, if your version of yourself were back then, you could probably come home on the weekends and explain it. This is happening. I'm going through this. I'm struggling here. What are your problems? I'll try to handle them and help you. But you didn't know how to do that back then. So, I mean, I just had a lot of compassion for your younger self, because you didn't have the tools yet to be able to handle that.
No.
And it's still pretty impressive, all that you did,
It's to be perfectly honest, it's a pretty selfish endeavor. It really is in the special operations community, and I may catch some flack about that, but I think the people who know what I'm talking about will say, yeah.
Well, I think
Yeah.
it has to be. How are you going to survive it if it wasn't? It's like we need special forces. We need them today. I'm so thankful for everybody that's active duty right now. Thank you. I'm realizing more about your sacrifice. I get it. And I get also when you're done, let's support these people so much because it's selfish on one hand, but also it's so giving to your country. It's so giving to what you did helped us so much, and what these people are doing now helps us and helps other people around the world. So I think if we just kind of see it for what it is, honestly, appreciate it and realize it's a sacrifice. And you can view it as selfish, but I view it as, well, this is what we need. We need these superhumans doing, even though you are still just human, it's going to have negative things come out of it because what you're doing is really hard and only a few people on the planet can do it. I mean,
yeah, it's extremely selfish in the sense that it requires so much of who you are in order to make it happen. It's when you're giving so much of yourself towards one single thing, which there's a phrase in the Army or in the NSF that's team parties is an opportunity to introduce your wife and kids to your family. Which is
I get it.
That really is that's the truth, and it becomes such a cohesive unit because you're giving so much of yourself to making sure that you can be absolutely the razor's edge for your buddy to your right and to your left.
You're keeping them alive and they're keeping you alive.
Yes,
right?
It depends on it. So it's a very noble profession. I like to say, the Army-Navy game is the only game where every person on both sides of the ball is willing to die for every person watching the game.
I mean, that's pretty intense to get to that place. I mean, we've talked about this before, but we'll get there. I mean, you were in rooms that were small with guns, and you had to eliminate enemies, keep other people alive, and protect your fellow soldiers. And that's pretty much one of the hardest things humans can do in this world. And you were trained to do it, and you did it, and you survived it. I just have so much empathy for this version of you. That's what I'm saying. You're seeing it as selfish, and I'm seeing it as, I'm so grateful you did it. Thank you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, we could keep going, but that's so, I just appreciate you telling me honestly how that felt, because I wouldn't have, I get it now.
It maybe doesn't come across that way in the books you read or the movies that you watch but that is definitely an element of it.
That's interesting.
For sure.
I get it, because you're having to be the best of the best. Okay, keep going. This is, thank you.
All right, so graduated phase 2, got to come home for a few weeks, and then we were entering into the MOS, the Military Occupational Specialty.
And what does that mean?
The qualification course. And that is where you go to learn your specific job, what your specific, on every detachment you have an 18 Bravo, which is a weapons sergeant, and so they're responsible for all the weapons training, all of the tactics, all of that stuff, sniper operations. That's their ball of wax. So we get trained on all of those weapons, both foreign and the weapons that we have on our team, and that's what I went in to learn how to do.
So you went in to be weapons specialist?
I went in to be I originally was told that I was going to be going to the 18 Delta course, which is the Special Forces medics course. But it was just recently out of college, and it's a year-long course. And I was just like, no, is there any way? I really would like to learn more about guns
and maybe not do so much intense studying.
Just coming out of college, so And so they were able to get that switched. But additionally, on the MOSs on the detachment, the Special Forces detachment, are the 18 Charlie, who is responsible for demolitions and training. The 18
So you're
Echo,
learning how to like do bomb explosive stuff?
yeah, bomb explosive stuff. Yeah, demolitions. Yeah, so explosives. and and you've got the 18 Echo, who's responsible for everything to do with communications. Then you've got the 18 you've got the 18 Whiskey, who is the Special Forces warrant officer. Some teams didn't have those, but a couple of my teams did. The 18 Zulu, who's the senior enlisted guy on the team sergeant, the team daddy as we call him, and then you have the 18 Alpha, who is the lone officer on the team, commissioned officer, usually a captain. So for me, I was the 18 Bravo. I went to that course. It was, I think it was 8 weeks long, learning every weapon imaginable, learning how to operate that weapon, functions check on that weapon, how to best employ that weapon, tactics. It was a lot. I really enjoyed it. Mortars, everything, and I really enjoyed it. But again, early on, the instructors were able to get away with a lot of, well, if you mess up, there's a lot of forced physical training. The smoke shows continue. But at that point, nobody's quitting. No one's quitting, but there is always, it's very academic what you're learning, and you get 2 chances on each exam, and if you don't pass it on the second one, you're
Did you
gone.
have to take a second one sometimes?
I did. I had to test twice on the mortars, and it was just.
So I imagine the stress of the second time taking it, like you better get it right this time, seems a little tense.
Yeah, it wasn't. That was not fun. I remember the night leading up to that, prior to that test, and oh man, that's some of the most stressed out I've ever been. But but I ended up passing the test, and that was fine. And everything else, through the 18 Bravo course was really good. I really got a lot out of that course. The instructors that we had, they had all already deployed, so they came back and were like, "No, you need to do it this way. This is how you need to learn it." And there was a lot of respect there because we knew that they were freshly back from the war. And
wow.
It was like, this is how it needs to be done.
And your course is a little bit different from regular Green Berets, right? Wasn't it a little bit sped up because of 9/11 and because wars had started?
They hadn't started speeding things up yet.
Okay.
At that point, it was still very much the amount of time that they had for it was what we got. So it wasn't until a few years later, I think, they didn't try to start. In my opinion, they kind of started cutting some corners. The you fail 2 tests and you're out thing, that went away.
They'd let you keep taking the test.
Well, even if an instructor dropped a student and they had the paperwork packet, the trail, like, hey, this is why this individual needs to go away. The command team would be like, no, they're still trainable. It's your job to train them. So they'd send them back. They'd fail again. And so there was a loss of trust, I think, with between the command teams and the instructors on the ground who are actually assessing.
I get both sides. You want the best of the best because these people are literally keeping you alive on these dangerous missions, right? You want the best of the best. And then also the amount of money it costs to train you all and to get you so far, and then to say you're not ready.
Yeah.
I get both sides. And when it's a life on the line, I understand your viewpoint very well. Yeah.
It felt like the standards were being compromised because they wanted to pump more people into it. And there are special operations forces, the soft truths. And one of the soft truths is special forces soldiers can't be mass produced during a time of emergency. That is a truth that we followed up to. And
we got to that training.
Point,
right.
We got to the point where standards were being compromised in order for more people to go through. And so what myself and a lot of my teammates were like, why is this standard being compromised? You either do this and move forward. If you don't do this, you don't move forward. And so that there was starting to be a real loss of trust, I would say, even between the students that were being there, because we had student evaluations. Rank on your team, rank from 1 to 12. On your team, who would be the first guy, who would be the last guy. And if you have a guy who consistently ends up at the bottom of the list, it's like there's got to be a problem there, because 12 people, 10 guys.
But they're not cutting that person.
But they would get recommended to be cut,
and then they wouldn't. I get what you're saying. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not a typical job. This is a job where people die. So
no,
where you're getting shot at. This is just it's so interesting to see what the training is like for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we haven't got to that part yet. Where that's not even.
Okay, so you're training to be the weapons
person,
sergeant,
mm-hmm.
and you're making it through.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, keep going. What happens?
So I made it through that portion. The next piece of the qualification course, and again, mind you, it may be different now the way that they go through. But when I went through, after the MOS phase, you go to what's called Robin Sage, and Robin Sage is the field exercise where you're put on a detachment and you function as your role would be on a team if you were actually at group, and all kinds of different scenarios.
So now they're putting you on fake missions like you were in war, but they're practice ones. And then are they going to examine what happens afterwards? You all get in a room and you're like, well, you should have done this, or maybe you could have done this, or here's another option. Did they do that stuff with you?
We always do an after action review. We always do that. But our team evaluator, who's with us through the entire time, Robin Sage in and of itself, it's a 2-week exercise where you're actually in an environment in North Carolina, and they've been doing this for years and years and years, where townspeople are role players. The entire place where you are is considered part of the exercise. And so you have your job, your function on that team, and for 2 weeks you have to perform that job. And it could be anything from leading a raid to going out on an ambush, taking your indigenous force with you, to go out training the indigenous force.
Wow.
All fixing indigenous weapons. And that's for each person, their MOS, they had to do those specific things in that environment. And so you get evaluated on how you perform your job.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah.
I can see why you're so tough mentally. You can take like criticism, or you can evaluate if it's valid or not, because you were constantly having this done to you in your training to be special forces. And I'm sure you had this done while you were on active duty too. I'm sure you went through and went over missions and stuff. So I wish we all did this as a society. I wish we would I wish we would just not the way you were done, but I'm just like, okay, if we were going to do this certain scenario over, how could we do it better? Because I do that with my own life. You know what I'm saying? If we just stopped sometimes, because we're always so busy and we're always on our phones or watching TV or reading a book, we're always very distracted. If we just stopped and thought, well, maybe I could have done this better. Next time I'll do that. I think that would help society a lot. Like I get therapy. I've had it for a year now, and it's helped me so much. And that's what therapy does. It's like, wait a minute, couldn't I have done something better? How could we, let's talk it through.
Yeah.
So
that's absolutely
But are you
true.
Saying the way you had it done was so intense? Like, what do you mean when you're like, oh, I don't want that done?
That is that level of criticism down to that minute piece of information or action. That's way, that's a whole different level of, and I thought that it was incredible during the Special Forces qualification course. When you get to your team it is even every single day is a competition. Everything is a competition.
So you're driven to try to be as perfect as possible at all moments, and when you're not 100% their version of perfect, they're pointing it out to you, and then they're basically training you to be the perfect Special Forces Green Beret person to handle these missions, right? I mean, we're not perfect as humans, so I get what you're saying.
There's competition between teammates in everything that you do. Everyone wants to be the best. When you have 12 people on a team who are shooting to be the best at every single thing that's on that extreme A-type personality, that's not an environment that everyone is going to flourish in. It's just not.
Would you want to be in that environment right now?
I miss that environment.
That's so funny.
I miss that. I mean, it's nice to be in an environment now where there isn't that stress every day, but every day when you go to work, you know what your job is, and your job is to be the best at whatever it is that you're doing, because you've got 11 other people that want to be better than you at that, and that's just an amazing environment to be in.
Yeah. When you're very intelligent and you're very driven and you're around other very intelligent, driven people, you don't come across that every day. So I get why you miss pieces of it. Yeah. You probably didn't need it to be as intense and for as long, and you could probably use more breaks and stuff. But that makes sense to me. That's so interesting.
It does. You don't realize it at the time, but it does start to wear on you.
Yeah, because you're only human.
Not in that environment.
You're kind of told to be superhuman, but in the end of the day, you're still just human.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Yeah. Okay, so thanks for doing this. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. Back in the Q course at Robin Sage, so 2 weeks, of this exercise. At the end of the first week, you get pulled aside by your evaluator and is like, hey, this is what you're doing really good. This is what you really need to step your game up with. And so at the end of the 2 weeks, you get pulled aside again. Hey, this is what I think you did really, really well. This is what I'd like to see you work on. And I'm going to go ahead and recommend that you that you move on to the next phase of the Q course. I like what you saw here. And I remember for me, I asked him, I was like, so what you're saying is, if I was going to be the new guy coming to your team, you would want to work with me. And he looked at me dead in the face and said, I wouldn't be recommending you if I didn't. But that's where we were at war, and they knew that the guys that were going to push forward and go out into the regiment, they were going to go be on a team, and they either needed to be an asset going to that team or not. And if those instructors weren't sending assets, they were sending liabilities. So they took it very, very serious.
It's life or death. I get it.
Mm-hmm. Master Sergeant Young, I remember him. He was phenomenal.
I'm also just overall impressed with how organized the military is.
I wish you could peek behind the curtain.
So organized, and also could be more organized, is what you're saying?
It's kind of like walking into a toddler's playroom, and it's an absolute disaster. But to them, they know where everything is and it's in place. That's kind of what the military.
Because there's so many parts. I mean, there's so many people. There's so much money. There's so many places. That makes sense to me. Your analogy. That's interesting.
Yeah. So after Robin Sage, we went on Thanksgiving break. Got Thanksgiving off, and my marriage at the time, relationships wise, that still was, I would say, my desire to be a part of the Special Forces community was really starting to supersede my marriage and that whole thing, and trying to have kids. And I think we had tried to get pregnant at that point, and she had ended up having a miscarriage.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And it was very difficult. It was very difficult for me, difficult for her. Whereas in my mind, I'm thinking, well, that's just nature's way of.
You didn't know how to handle. You weren't there emotionally for her.
I wasn't there emotionally for her, and that really started to strain the marriage quite a bit.
Yeah.
After that, after Thanksgiving, we started the language portion of the Q course, which for me, it was Persian Farsi, which is a 6-month language. So guys that got French, Spanish, Tagalog, maybe one or two other ones, those were 3-month languages, but they're still difficult to learn. But Farsi, Arabic, Russian, Korean, Mandarin, Chinese, those are 6-month languages. And for me, this was by far the most difficult.
That sounds hard.
Because again, you take a test every, what was it, 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it was, and you're evaluated. You get 2 chances, and if you're not moving on to you're done. You're out. So that was, I would say, my drinking really picked up.
I mean, that sounds
during
so
the
stressful.
qualification course.
Did you have to take the test twice sometimes?
No, not for language.
Wow.
Not for language. I didn't. I thought for sure that every time I took an exam, I thought for sure that I was going to have to, and it was difficult. It was really difficult. From 9 to 5 every single day, working out in the
so
morning.
Hard.
Working out in the morning and then working out again in the evening.
I mean, when you finish 6 months, which doesn't sound long enough, we put our high school students through 4 years of it. Mm-hmm. After 6 months, how well could you speak it and understand it?
After 6 months, we were required to be speaking at the I believe it was the 1-1 level, which is basic conversational.
Wow.
That's what we were required to be able to do. And it was tough. What was difficult was to see, our buddies that got the Spanish, French, Tagalog, those languages, and after 3 weeks, they're actually enjoying their language. And then after 3 months, they take their test and they're done. They get to move on to the last phase of the Q course.
Still in this.
Everybody else is still, trying to figure out the alphabet. It's just,
Can you say a common phrase in Farsi now?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us one? I want to hear what it sounds like, because I don't even know what Farsi sounds like.
Hello, how are you?
Just the way you said that sounds very hard to pronounce. You put like a in it.
Yeah, it's very guttural. Not as much as Arabic, but it's much less harsh than Arabic. But nonetheless, it's still.
I'm impressed. Good job learning that language.
It was really tough. So we get to the end of language school, and we take our test, which is it's about a 30 or 40 minute phone conversation with an instructor from the Defense Language Institute out in Monterey, California, which is the hub of that is the hub of where all the language courses are taught. So, or taught for that campus, and we actually belong to that campus. So it was difficult, and what was difficult for me was my instructors were all male. Well, the person that was giving me the exam was female, and males and females can be saying the exact same thing, but it sounds very different, and especially in that language, where things could be spoken a little more harshly via a male speaker, whereas with a female speaker, it could not be as harsh. So does that mean it means something else?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Difficult. So, that was tough. The language course was really tough for me. It didn't really click until I would say about the 4th month, when I actually started dreaming in the language.
Oh yeah.
And it was, I would say that studying for those exams and really learning that language in that short a period of time, that was tough. That was really difficult for me.
I cannot even fathom. And especially you saying it's hard, you're thinking,
it was hard.
It was hard. To be hard then.
It wouldn't have been as difficult if I knew that at the end of each, month or whatever it was, we had to take an exam about what we learned, and knowing that up until about the 4th month, all I did was memorize what I needed to know in order to pass the test.
Mm-hmm.
because I still was like, I'm not learning this. This is not
Right.
clicking.
And so it was 4 months in before it clicked.
4 months in before it started clicking. That's a whole lot of, tap dancing to get through the test.
Well, mentally, when you learn something new, it's very uncomfortable and hard.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm doing a lot of new stuff, trying to figure out all this technology and stuff for Project Next. And when I mess up, I'm so mad at myself, and I'm just uncomfortable because it's like I don't understand this.
Right.
So
Yeah.
to do what I'm doing is a tiny fraction of what you were doing. It just seems,
it's difficult.
but it also seems so helpful. You survived it. You did it. You came out of it.
Yeah.
You learned the language as much as you were supposed to learn the language. So you see that if you put in the hard work, it pays off.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like in our culture today, a lot of people don't have that mentality. They start something, it's hard, they give up, not realizing it might take months. It might take years.
Right.
So just having the mindset of don't give up. It's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to be mad and discouraged. Keep at it.
Just keep
I think
going.
it's a good life lesson that we can all learn from people like you.
Just keep coming back, keep doing it. It was very challenging, but it was also very rewarding too, because when I got to the end and I actually having that conversation with that instructor on the other end of the phone, I was
and it was on the
responding.
Phone. Yeah. That sounds hard too.
Yeah. I was responding to the questions. There was no memorized, formula. She would ask a question and then I would start talking. And then I would ask her a question. Well, what did you think? It was an actual conversation. So it felt really good to be able to do that.
That's amazing. Good job. I'm proud of you that you did that experience. But I just think the life lesson of you seeing it paid off had to really help you shape who you are. Like that experience had to help you.
Every step of the way, everything that you passed, everything that you not just passed, but excelled at, because there's being the minimum standard that's the lowest. Like, why would you ever shoot for the minimum? Shoot for the best. So passing these gates and excelling through the gates, that was really beneficial for my mindset. It really was.
That's amazing. Okay. Yeah, I remember reading in the book, I'm just reading a couple pages in the chaos book I'm reading, and it's saying they learned languages. And so I texted you. I was like, "Did you learn a language?" You're like, "Yeah, Farsi." I was like, "Wow."
Yeah. It was a good time.
And they were like that too, very similar to you. Some of the guys were happy they got the slightly easier languages. Some were like, "Oh man, I got the harder languages." So they were going through the same thing.
Oh, it was. And what's really strange is a lot of, even in the Middle East, where a lot of Arabic is spoken, unlike in the United States, most people speak multiple languages over there, and French is one of them. I heard just as many Arabic-speaking natives speak French as I did Arabic. So that was just one of those. I remember being in Lebanon, and my team leader spoke French, and they went from Arabic into French, and then I just like this. Only in Lebanon am I gonna hear
That's
this.
so funny. So. And I remember reading in the book that some of them said they would act like they didn't know the language well.
Yeah.
Like that's a great tactic, and then you're listening in on people's conversations and you're picking it up.
They would assume that you don't speak their language.
Right.
So they go from speaking broken English to theirs,
and you pick it up, and you just act like you're just acting like you don't understand them, but you're picking it up. That seems like a very smart tactic. That makes sense.
They picked up on that pretty quick though.
That makes sense too.
Yeah. So we graduate language course, which was 6 months long. That puts us up into June. So I got maybe a week in between language school and going to the final course, the final class in the Special Forces qualification course, which is SEER, Survive, Evade, Resist, and Escape. And this is the SEER Level C course, so it's hostage detention type survival course, and all special operators, air personnel, so if you're in helicopters, are required to go through SEER C, because you're in high risk of being captured and being held hostage.
So they're acting like they're taking you hostage, and they're kind of taking you through? Or is it two parts? They probably tell you, they probably teach you, and then they probably put you through real situations.
Yeah,
Or similar?
it's a 3 week course, 3.5 week course, and the first 2 weeks are all classes. A lot of after action reviews of individuals in Vietnam who had been detained for long periods of time, what they used, how they mentally got through being detained for that period of time, the constant torture being, uh, the interrogations, the brutality of the interrogations, and what you could expect. And but the lessons that they did bring back to you is how to react, what information to give up, what not, and it is a secret level course, so there's not I can't go into a lot of the specifics, but you're essentially taught how to survive and come back with honor, is what is taught. So that's for the first 2 weeks. A lot of field craft, what you can eat, what you can't eat, what you shouldn't eat, what you shouldn't drink, what you need to do, when you should move. All kinds of survival type tactics to keep you alive if you're behind enemy lines and on the run. And then you go into the final phase, which is a week long, and you are put on a team who is, essentially you're evading. You're evading captors. You're on the run, basically, and then you get to a point where it's going to happen. Everyone is going to get captured,
How's
and
your mentality? Are you just always knowing this isn't real, or do you let your mind pretend it's real so that you get the bigger benefits of it in case it happens in real life?
I would say the instructors during the detention phase, when we're actually in detention, they do a phenomenal job of making sure that you believe it's as real as it can be. I'll just
So it's pretty good at taking you to that place mentally, which I get. I think that's important that they did that because
Yeah.
you really needed to feel those fear emotions and let those things come and know how to tamp them down so that you can keep yourself alive and not give away important
Yeah,
intel and stuff.
and what's important to remember too is when you're extremely tired, and we were
Oh
doing this
yeah.
in June, July. If I remember correctly, it was one of the hottest summers up to that point in North Carolina. Uh, when you haven't had much to eat, when the mosquitoes are eating you alive at night, you're sleeping on the ground, the snakes, the wildlife, being on the moon, being tracked with dogs. There is that constant stress. You're not eating a whole lot. There's not a lot of food available. So when you get captured and you go into detention, you maybe have only slept, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours over the course of the last 4 days.
Wow.
And now you're going into a situation where you're being detained and the threat of severe repercussions
For
is
disobeying
is
them.
very real, very
Wow.
real.
Okay, this makes sense
So
why it's more believable now.
I won't go in. If you really want to know what it's all about, I'll let someone else tell you all about go more in depth with it.
So
I'd want to try to keep it surface level.
so was this more difficult than the 6 months of Farsi? If you had to go back and do one or the other, which one would you rather do?
That's that is the difficult. I would do SEER again. I would do SEER simply because I know that I used what I learned in that course a lot more than the Persian Farsi I used over the 6 months of the language course. And you learn so much about yourself at SEER during the interrogations, the
Wow.
different types of interrogations that you go through. Uh, People, when you watch that kind of stuff on TV, it's real easy to be like, just don't do it, just don't say. I just wouldn't say it. Why would? Well, when you haven't had anything to eat for 4 or 5 days, when you're running on 3 or 4 hours of sleep over 4 or 5 days, and you're watching one of your best buddies get pounded on because you're not coughing up the information.
Maybe don't be so judgmental
The
because you don't
it's
know what it's like.
it's very It's very, and that's just surface level. That's broad stroke what I'm talking about. But it is a very emotional course where you learn a lot about yourself. I know for me, I had a lot of during those interrogations, especially the very physical interrogations. Uh, it was hard not to, because of the state of mind that I was in, to think back about childhood experiences. Being reprimanded.
So it's bringing back past trauma.
Bringing
that makes sense.
That past trauma out.
Yes, that makes sense.
So
wow.
It was very difficult, but you learn so much. I actually volunteered to go to a number of other SEER courses. I learned so much from that one, survival courses. And after 3 weeks, there's a very emotional, you're repatriated ceremony.
Repatriated
so you're actually acquired back. So we were being held by a hostage element, and we were rescued and brought back, repatriated back.
So they're really reenacting
so it's happening the way that it would. Wow. And there's so much more to what it is that I'm saying. There's just so much of it that's at the secret level, for obvious reasons. So we get repatriated, come back. Wow, it was an amazing thing to be repatriated back. But we also, what they did very, very, what I thought was a good thing was everyone spoke to the doc, the psych, afterwards.
Oh, that's
They
good.
got together as, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? What were your emotions? I think
that was needed, yeah.
What were your feelings? Those things. And I remember we were tested they were doing a medical test on us to see our stress levels, how we reacted. So at various times they would take, a saliva sample and see what we were doing, where we were at. And the test results from that were really, that could be another whole show in itself. But
yeah.
It was really, really impressive to see how special operations candidates matched up to a typical regular population of people, their stress levels, how they bounce back from stress, that whole thing. So it learned a lot about yourself, graduated from there, out processed at Fort Bragg, and I was on my way to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, to the 5th Special Forces Group.
And so that's what we'll talk about next week?
That's what we'll pick up on.
I cannot wait to hear what happened next. Just listening to this story about how you liked learning these things, being in this scenario where you're getting tortured and you're not supposed to give up information and you're supposed to survive, and you liked it because it brought back your past trauma and then you got help with it. I get why you liked it, because that's the main thing that happened in your life, your trauma when you were a child. And this seemed to be the best way you could get some help with it.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating to me. What a rare chance that you had that happen. Most people don't have those scenarios. We don't have to worry about getting kidnapped and tortured and giving up special intel, and our people that we love getting beat and stuff. We don't have to worry about those scenarios. And you got practice and learned the best tactics. That's incredible.
Which is the point of everything I would say that we did in special operations is, you don't want the first time that you do something or experience something to be in a combat situation or any other situation.
Right.
If you can practice it and experience what we call stress inoculation, every time you're exposed to something, you're stressed about it just a little bit less because you've already experienced that.
The first time's always the hardest.
So it's the same way with SEER. The primary lesson is, don't ever get caught. That's the point, because everyone breaks. Everyone has a breaking point. It doesn't matter who you are or how hard you think you are.
They will starve you or keep you up or torture you or hurt other people.
Weakness.
They will do something.
They will find your weakness.
That makes sense. We're all human at the end of the day. Yeah. That is so interesting. I am just so grateful. Any of you that are watching that are veterans or in the service now, you have my gratitude. Thank you so much. It means so much more to me when I say thank you for your service, because I understand a little bit more about what that means from you. So thank you
Right.
for being my friend. Thank
Right.
you for doing this show with me. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
And I think it's going to help people.
Yeah.
I think it's
I
really
do
wonderful
too.
that you're sharing your story so openly and honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like your shirt today. This
Oh,
is
yeah.
a Special Forces shirt, right?
This is one of my company T-shirts.
I
Yeah.
like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We will try to do this again next week if our schedules work. I think we're planning on next Monday. And this Thursday, if you want to see me in person, I will be in Salem at 5:30, and it lasts a couple hours. There's an event. I think it's at the American Legion in Salem, and it's a unity event. If you want to help with the community and find out what's going on and how you can help, there'll be a bunch of different people. But Project Next will be there. I will be speaking. So if you want to come and see me personally, if you want to meet Brian, you can come because his family has a beautiful business, Zimmerman's Art Glass here in Corden. That's what we're filming right now. Art Glass, beautiful. So feel free to come on down. They're open Tuesday through Saturday, right?
Tuesday, Saturday, 10 to 5.
Every day 10 to 5.
Every day 10 to 5.
So you can come in. This is their art room where we're filming. It's really beautiful. And then you can also, if they're blowing glass, you can maybe watch it, right? If you're in the middle of doing that.
Come watch anytime. Stay as long as you want.
And let Brian know if you're watching the show. I think that helps encourage you.
Yeah.
We decided we wanted to do this, and if it helped one person, it'd be worth it.
Yeah.
But maybe we can help more. Maybe we can help
Absolutely.
more than one person. Yeah. Come on down to the Zimmerman Art Class, especially if you have a special person's birthday or something. There's some really beautiful gifts that you could get, or you want something. So I saw something and I was like, this is the most incredible thing ever. And you said it was a door. Is holding a door open.
Oh yeah, doorstop. Yeah.
I was like, oh, you can have art that holds your door open.
That's one right there.
That's a doorstop. Yeah, that's cool. So I think that's really cool that we got to do one once I can get all the tech and we have time. We need to do a live on location show. You show me how you do this stuff.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah, that sounds fun. We'll do that. Oh, and I also want to do just a walk around downtown Corden with you.
Yep.
And just show how cute the town is.
Yeah.
I love it here. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, it's good. Place.
Fun, exciting stuff coming up. We'll be doing more shows this week, and Tim is getting better, thankfully. So Tim will be doing some of his regular shows. That's going to be coming up in the next, maybe this week, maybe next week. But I look forward to seeing more of Tim as he recovers.
Yeah.
And you guys have a fantastic day, and just thank you so much. Oh, we have one comment. This is great. This is from Brandon. Do you know Brandon Don?
Yes.
He said, great perspective, Brian. Although not in the SOF realm, I also commonly felt selfish in regards to being there for the family while consistently being told I was selfless by the beast. Hard one to navigate, even still so. Thanks, Brandon.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon. Absolutely. I'm with you, buddy.
That's amazing. Because I'm just like, you're doing this for your country, but then I get it, why it seems selfish for your family. I totally understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody that does this for our country. Yeah. So much gratitude. Thank you, Brandon, for writing that down. That was really beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, have a wonderful rest of your Monday and your week. Enjoy the weather getting warmer. I'm glad we don't have intense flooding right now.
Thank goodness. Yeah.
So that's nice. So everybody have a fantastic week, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Take care.